2004. My name is Barbara Shakora. We are talking today to Leah Knight as part of the Historical Society of Milwaukee celebration of 350 years of Jewish life in America. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's begin by your telling us your name and a little bit about you.
Okay, I'm Leah Knight. Okay, I've also been known as Leah Rabinovitz and Leah Knaz. Okay, but currently I am Leah Knight. Okay, I was born and raised in Milwaukee, okay, and have always been involved in the Jewish community, even as a youngster, through the Habunim, the Labor Zionist Youth Movement.
That's a good start. I think we're done. No.
Okay.
Tell us a little about your ancestry.
Okay, both my father and my mother were immigrants to the United States. I think one in 1921 and one in 1923. Okay.
And where did they come from?
My father came from Russia. Okay, he followed two older brothers who came here. One entered the country through Dallas, Texas, anyhow, and came to Milwaukee because there were other members of their little village called, what was it called? They'll come to me. Anyhow, they were in Milwaukee, and so we came to Landsleit. Like families like the Commissars, the Frees, were all people that my father knew in Russia from the town of Kalenkovich. My mother came from what is sometimes Russia, sometimes Poland, depending on what army was taking over. It's interesting because she came from a small, like, agricultural town. My grandfather was a butcher, farmer, and then became a shochet when they came to the United States. But they came from a small town called Motala. Their claim to fame is that was where the town of Chaim Weitzman. So as you can see, Labor Zionist was always part of, both parents were involved with it. My parents met at the Lincoln Center, which used to be like, the Jewish Center for Milwaukee for new immigrants. And they were taking English as a second language when they met.
And where in Milwaukee did they live?
Okay, a couple places, okay. Actually, my father had an early, in his trying to make a living, a kosher butcher shop, but it was not on the west side, but on Walnut Street. And then he had a shoe store, but also in this end of town. And we lived on the north side of town. I never lived on the west side or in that Jewish community, although other members of my family did. My cousins, aunts, and uncles did live on the west side. Two of them were kosher butchers, so were well known in the Jewish community.
When they first came, did they get involved in Jewish life? Were you involved in Jewish life from the beginning? Was your neighborhood Jewish?
You know, the neighborhood wasn't that Jewish, even though it was 9th Street and 7th Street, it's basically where I grew up. Went to Roosevelt Junior High School, obviously, where there were a lot of Jewish kids. Went to North Division, where there were a lot of Jewish kids. But on our block, not necessarily so. Okay. My father, in terms of always being involved, escaped from Russia in the middle of the night because he was working for the communist government at the time, and they were doing something about distribution of sugar. But he was a labor Zionist, and he used his office for a meeting, which was illegal. And somebody one of the non-Jewish neighbors came up and said, Albert, you have to leave out. You're out of the country tonight. They know that you're here and you're having the meeting. So he left his family and crossed over the Dnieper, where all the money was in his boots, and made his way to Warsaw. Okay? And there was able to communicate with my uncles who were here already. He worked in Poland for a year to save up money, plus the money he got from here, in order to come. So his history goes all the way back to being a labor Zionist. And as soon as he got to Milwaukee, it was very easy for him to connect up with other people who had similar philosophies and lifestyles. Yeah.
You say that you didn't grow up in a very Jewish neighborhood. Did you run into any anti-Semitism?
I went to the Yiddish Volksschule, which was in the corner of 11th and Vine, if I'm remembering it correctly, part of the labor Zionist system. And the only time I really experienced it was being attacked when I didn't use necessarily the transportation. I walked to the Volksschule, and I and another girl were hit. You know, I don't know what would have happened in these days, but in those days we got away and ran home. Okay. And after that, my parents signed up to use like a van who picked up kids and brought them to and from the program. Okay. But that was the only time I really experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Were
I
you
had
proud to be
Jewish
a
and
Jew?
non-Jewish, always. It was
Always.
never any discomfort about who I am or what I am,
Mhm.
no.
Mhm.
We weren't a really religious household. Labor Zionists aren't not necessarily, I mean, like temple affiliates and stuff like that, no. Very culturally and committedly Jewish.
Did you belong to a synagogue at all?
No,
Uh-huh.
no.
How about your kids now, jumping ahead a little?
Oh, that's a different Misa altogether. I have three from,
Uh-huh.
this is the first and second marriage, so that's, I have
Uh-huh.
3 children. I have Beth Draper, intermarried, okay, but raised her daughter, Ilana, Jewishly, as a graduate of the day school, and Beth teaches 4-year-old or 5-year-old kindergarten, depending on the need, at the Milwaukee Jewish Day School. Okay, I have David, who lives in Israel. He's a surgeon, and he was a member of kibbutz, but now he lives in a beautiful community called Kfar Radim, which is right across the road from Ma'alot, for those who have been to Israel, so it's in the northern border. And he has 3 children. Okay. One of them in the Army right now, middle one in the Army right now, in paratroopers.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And hopefully not going to Gaza, from my point of view.
What, speaking of the kids.
Oh, and I
what
have
do you-
one more. Danny.
Oh, sorry.
Danny, I forgot. I didn't forget him. He's the baby. And
Uh-huh.
he lives in Chicago, and he is a renal physician. You know, and he is also married and has 3 children.
Uh-huh. And some of them have moved away, but as you say, your daughter is teaching at the
Day school.
day school. What do you see as the future of Judaism in Milwaukee?
You know, I always come from a positive perspective. Okay. It may not be exactly the same as any different philosophy in the community wants it to be, but I think that there will always be a Jewish community here in Milwaukee. It used to be that Milwaukee was considered like a model city for a Jewish community in terms of how it was organized and the relationships we had with each other. I think that still is there.
You've been very active, as you say, all of your life. I know you have been done a lot of work for Federation, especially the women's division. Would you talk a little bit about that, what you've done and what your accomplishments in that have been?
Hopefully. I have 2 different roles. I was a volunteer within, as the Jewish community. When my first husband came back after Korea, when he was in the Army in Korea, and I immediately got involved and came to a meeting and was just literally turned on, got very much involved with Women's Division, was a graduate of the Young Women's Committee. Okay. That's when I won the Anna Golnick Leadership Award, and had the great pleasure of being with people like Anna Golnick and Esther, Esther Leah and I were very close friends. I think, and then I became a professional, within the Jewish community. I was very fortunate. After my divorce, I decided to go back to school because I was a dental hygienist, and that wasn't necessarily the career I was interested in. And I got a master's degree in social work, community organization, and planning. And I was able to get, the UWM agreed to let me work on a stipend while I'm getting credits for my field placement in social work. So it was really a very good match for me, and I was very fortunate. And I was Women's Division Director, I think, for 2 years, maybe more. And after that, I competed for the position of planning director, and what, as it turns out, which I didn't know about at the time, was the first women's planning director in the United States for Jewish community. After, there were always men. So that was a totally new experience for me.
And you met your husband during that time, or this?
The current husband?
Yes.
No, I moved into an apartment, and he moved into an apartment building that was totally besides the
Oh,
point. Yeah,
okay.
actually, his name was Knight, right? So I didn't think he was Jewish, so I didn't have anything to do with it. And then, close friend through Federation, Lena Shalom, said to me, "Don't you meet anybody in your building?" I said, "Yeah, and the only new person who's near my age, his name is Knight." She said, "Don't you know Yale Knight?" I said, "No, how would I know Yale Knight?" And I said, "He's not even Jewish." And she said, "Yes, he is." So I made a point to meet him, and we hit it off.
So you said that, obviously, so you said that you didn't pay any attention to him because you didn't think he was Jewish. Was that how you spent your life? You only dated
Never.
Jewish?
Yes, never, always involved with something that was Jewish.
And
Never
your
in-
friends?
Huh?
Your
My friends? Well, actually, I have mostly Jewish friends, close friends. Remember, came from a labor Zionist background, so I had my chaverim were part of my circle, which changed as we grew up and went different directions, but still, we're old friends. But having gone to university at my age, I made a lot of non-Jewish friends also.
Mhm.
People who were in school with me at the same time. I was older, but we had a great time.
Mhm. And now, so you have mixed friends now?
Mostly Jewish,
Uh-huh.
I think. I'd have to stop and think about that.
Mhm. You belong to a synagogue now?
I married somebody who did, so yes, we
Oh.
belong to Emmanuel.
Uh-huh. And you were happy to be Jewish. You never had any
Always.
problem with that.
I didn't even, I see the next generations having some kind of jealousy about Christmas and the stuff like that. I never felt that. I didn't miss that. Every Jewish holiday, regardless of the fact that we don't look like traditional synagogue Jews, every Jewish holiday was practiced. Our house was kosher.
Your house is kosher?
It was kosher. No,
Oh,
I'm not.
mhm.
Okay.
That's what
But
kids.
there are certain things I cannot swallow. Seafood, pork, I cannot. That's an upbringing, and I've never broken that.
Uh-huh.
Occasionally I have a rib. I take it back. Right? But no, that's just not the way I eat anyhow.
Who are some of the people that influenced your life as you were growing up? Scholars or friends, or do you remember anybody in
Well,
particular?
We talked about Esther Leah Ritz, who I think was very instrumental in helping me get the position as a woman, as opposed to most of the other candidates coming through. Betty Lieberman, who we're still close friends. Esther Sarfati, who was the Women's Division Director before me. I mean, I knew the role and what role she had. Obviously, Anna Golnick was very important to me. Edie Edelman. I was involved with as a volunteer with the Federation. At the time, I thought there was great women leadership.
This
Mary Weiss-
Anna Golnick Award, did Anne contribute this? Tell us a little about Anne.
I don't know the background of the award itself.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I don't know whether it was. I think it was set up in honor of her, but I'm not
Uh-huh.
sure it had anything to do with any kind of monies. I think it had to do with recognition of her leadership role
Uh-huh.
in the women's division.
So you didn't know her personally?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did. Went to her 80th birthday.
And what was, oh, really?
Yeah.
And what was her contribution?
She's just a very bright woman, committed to the whole idea of a strong Jewish community, and was very much involved in women's division. In those days, most of the role of women was such, changed, that most of the activities involved in the community were through the women's division, and the women's division acted as not only a fundraising arm for Federation, but also an educational tool which ended up teaching women, but then teaching families.
Mhm. Did you get a degree now when you went back to school?
Yes, I have a master's degree in social
Oh,
work.
great, great. That's been useful for you.
Gave me the opportunity to just think about it. My whole life was involved with the idea of Israel and the strong Jewish community, and I had an opportunity to work for the Jewish community. So I had a vocation and application, everything all into one.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
And-
I did enjoy it. When I retired at the time, because I think, from my point of view, you can only be a planning director in one city, and I wasn't mobile, for a certain length of time. Other than that, because of the kind of issues you're dealing with, I think that the differences of opinion could get in the way of progress for the Jewish community, and it was time for me to move on.
Mhm. Where in the city do you live now?
Fox Point,
You live in Fox Point. You have a home,
we have a home.
Mhm. but no kids live with you.
No, we have a 2-bedroom home on Barnett.
Mhm.
Very nice, love it.
And I'm sure you travel to Israel a lot. You have children there.
I'm in Israel every year,
Every year.
and I've lost count. I've also took missions, as I staffed missions with the guides in Israel, but I staffed missions. And I have no idea how many times I've been there.
Great. How about cultural things in the community? Are you involved with anything like plays or art or music?
Not in a leadership, as a user, absolutely. Okay. Tonight we're going to go see, on the stoops of Orchard Street.
You're going to see?
On the stoops of Orchard Street, which is a Jewish musical off Broadway, but in Milwaukee for one night. We also have season rep tickets. I used to have, and I don't right now, have Milwaukee Symphony season tickets. We used to have the Skylight tickets. We still go to, because we travel in and out, we don't go away for the winter. We're here. But I do travel, occasionally.
Where have you been?
Well, besides Israel. But even then, we took a trip to, on the Danube, okay, and ended up in Prague, okay. And then my husband, my sister, my brother-in-law came back from Milwaukee. I flew from Prague to Israel. That was the shortest trip to Israel ever.
Prague, they say it's a beautiful city. What did you think?
I loved Prague. And it's probably, usually once I've been to a place, and I'd rather go to a new place that I haven't seen, I'd go back to Prague and to Budapest, because I really did enjoy that very much. Been to London, been to Paris, toured northern France, been to Russia. Russia, I was in the Black Sea. So I was in Odessa, Shikumi, I don't know what the name of the other cities are. Been Turkey. That was also a short trip to Israel, because I went to dropped everybody off and went to Israel after Turkey. Love to travel.
Some sort of philosophical questions, if you will. Is there any lesson in life that you've learned that's carried you through?
Interesting. I probably have avoided thinking about it. I've had my turmoils, obviously, going through a divorce with 3 little kids. I just found that if you're honest, okay, you can find relationships, okay, and you can build on that, and it's a comfort level for me. And that was true even working at Federation. Okay.
What are you most proud of?
My children and grandchildren, but aside from that, yes, having had a role in building and part of building this Jewish community, I'm very proud of. When I started, I was still a student. When I started working for Federation, they told you I was able to set up the stipend that UWM agreed to, so I could get my credits and still work here. It was right after the Yom Kippur War, and I remember the outpouring of feeling from the whole community in order to even take in the money that was coming in. Okay, if flooding in, okay, we had set up tables outside on the parking lot so that people wouldn't have to stand in line. That was like my first introduction to working here. And it was, you can imagine the emotions that I felt. Because I was such a novice at being a professional, they gave me the opportunity of staffing what was one of the first high school divisions. Okay? And that probably was the most fun, And I still bump into the kids who are in the division, who are leaders of the fundraising efforts that we had started in that. And and they remember me, and we talk about, remembering that experience. That was really quite unique.
How about regrets? Any regrets?
On a personal level, the divorce. Yeah, right. Yes, I mean, that was very difficult. Any regrets? I am sure I made lots of mistakes. Okay. And I can't imagine that I could do the job that I was doing here and not having people who would tell me plenty about the things they regret about me. Okay. But in all honesty, I'm human. But whatever I did, I thought I was doing right at the time.
What was the happiest moment of your life?
I've had many. You don't have 3 kids and grandchildren and weddings and bar and bat mitzvahs and all that stuff without having nachas, and I think I have a lot of nachas. I'm very fortunate in this marriage that at this point in my life to have, a warm, loving kind of relationship. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's very important to me.
And that's how you'd like to be remembered. Tell us, how would you
I'd
like to be remembered?
2 different levels. Okay. God, I wish I thought about all this stuff. Yeah. I'd like to be remembered of having been a successful employee of the Federation, because that was so much of my life, and I always remember saying when I would do presentations for everybody that if we think we have enough money, we're not being creative, because as a Jewish community, I always felt that there was always something else we ought to be doing to strengthen the Jewish community. To do that, sometimes you have to be creative and find different ways of connecting with different people. So I think, hopefully, I was able to do that. Okay. And hopefully, because I have raised, whether they're married or not married to Jews or not, I have raised wonderful human beings. All of my kids are very social-minded, very giving, and very concerned for the society, the environment, the political situation they're involved. And that was very satisfying too.
Is there anything you want to talk about that we did not get to?
I don't think so.
You think we've covered it?
Yeah. Is there any other areas of
Well,
history or questions that
any
were...
secret that you'd like to, that you've never told anybody that you'd like to tell now?
No. It's still, if it is, it's still secret.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
We've
I
all
hope-
enjoyed it.
Okay.